Good afternoon, everyone. I hope it's warm enough for everybody. We're trying to save money on air conditioning, I think. I'm Jerry Pierce. I'm chairman of Restaurant Equipment World, which is also known as REW in our industry. My son Brad is president. He can't be here today, but our daughter Patty Nuzzo is here. She's vice president of the company. My beautiful wife Carol is also here, and she's also matriarch of the family. I'll hear about that later after she didn't know I was going to say that. And our third generation, Hunter and Landon Pierce, are also here. For 50 years that REW has been in business, we have operated under the burden of ever-increasing real estate taxes, which have grown substantially. In this very building, for example, taxes have increased 29% over the last 4 years, with more substantial increases increased. The current taxes are now more than double 10 years ago, and with tax increases that are already baked into the system, we will end up in 1 or 2 years with no further adjustments in the assessed valuation. We will be triple 10 years ago. Homeowners are also seeing increases which are limited by law to the 3% per year for homestead properties. That may not seem like a big thing, but each year 3% compounds to ever-rising taxes. Local counties and cities receive a windfall in revenue due to rising property values, but never seem to reduce millage rates. They just find ways to spend the windfall, apparently too often wasting money. 2 weeks ago, I was in Northeast Georgia, Rabun County, in September 4th newspaper. There was a huge article about how the county commissioners were very proud that they reduced the millage rate for 12 years in a row. That is unheard of to ever happen here in Florida. Up until now, maybe we'll change that. Those commissioners were proud of the fact they were able to do that and still maintain quality schools and services. It is great to see Florida's chief financial officer taking the time to address this situation and to fight for all Floridians to lower our property taxes and still maintain quality essential services. It is an honor to introduce and welcome Chief Financial Officer Blaise Ingoglia. I apologize for that. I promised several times I wouldn't do that. My wife will really get after me now. Of the great state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and don't worry about the last name. I often mess it up myself, so I'm good with you guys. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Blaise Ingoglia, and I am the CFO of the great state of Florida. A couple of things before we start. I know that there are some people in the room that we'd like to say hello to. We have our esteemed Senator Broder. We have two representatives, Representative Cobb and Representative Placencia. Thank you guys for coming. And I think you guys know just how much I care about our first responders. We do have some FOP leadership here. Jeff Stinson and Andrew Chenard, they're here. They're in the back. Sorry. Thank you, guys. So before we start, Representative Yarkowski's in the back. And is Senator Trunow here? I heard he may be coming. Okay, we'll just fire him later. So before we start, I just want to make something clear. The information that we are going to be going over today, we're going to be revealing to the public and the taxpayers today is some high-level spending information that is compiled by my office to illustrate just how bad the spending has gotten here in Orange County. So when DOGE reports come out, which are going to be separate from what we're doing today, separate but combined, they are going to show the specific instances of wasteful spending. So today, it's high-level, hopefully in layman's terms, so everyone can understand just how bad the spending is. And when you have bad spending, you have higher than what you should have in terms of property taxes. Housing affordability is a big issue here in the state of Florida. It's something that I have been going around the state talking about. We should talk about it more. And I think some of our speakers today are going to be talking about those issues also. Property taxes have skyrocketed over the past few years. People are demanding property tax relief, and I'm here to tackle this issue on behalf of hardworking, tax-paying Floridians. So as you all know, I have been traveling the state, which are DOJ, FAFO teams, on a mission to purge waste, fraud, and abuse out of local budgets and to reduce or even eliminate property taxes on homesteaded properties here in the state of Florida. Now, the sad state of affairs is local government budgets in Florida. Now, I'm holding everyone accountable here because a lot of these budgets are Republican and Democrat alike, but a lot of these budgets, almost all of them, have increased in between 60 to 120% over the past 4 or 5 years. Now, that is the general fund budget, the portion of the budget that is funded by your property taxes. And I know you all are feeling the pain. So as you can see right here on this placard to my right, to your left, I think this is very timely. We pulled this from the Tampa Bay Times. Local elected officials are already playing defense and trying to justify their wasteful, bloated budgets in saying that the increases are largely attributable to inflation and rising population, not government graft. I say BS. Our calculations beg to differ, so hold on to your hats. We are going to go through some of the spending that we have seen here in Orange County. We're going to do this with some graphics and some boards. Probably can make the joke that I'm going to be the Grady Judd of wasteful spending. $190 million, $190,643,653. According to our calculations, Orange County taxpayers are being overtaxed by this amount right here. That is an astounding amount of money. We are deeming almost $200 million of the Orange County budget excessive and wasteful. That is an amazing amount of money. Now, we actually think the number is a little bit bigger, but for our purposes, we know that this is absolutely almost $200 million excessive and wasteful spending. So, the question is, how do we get here and what can we do about it? In Orange County, over the past 5 years alone, the general fund budget, that portion of the budget which is funded by your property taxes, increased $559,151,494. That is a almost 54% increase in just the past 5 years. Your local government here is taking the money and spending it and expanding government, creating new programs that probably shouldn't be paid with your tax dollars, expanding already existing programs that are paid by your tax dollars, and just wasting it willy-nilly, because to them, it's not your money. It's not real to them. They're just seeing this as an endless trough that they can come back time and time again from the taxpayers. First, I want everyone to know that that eye-popping increase of $559 million is for a population increase of only 79,000 people. $559 million in extra spending only for 79,000 people. To put this number into context a little, Putnam County, which only has 79,000 people, their total budget for everything that they deliver in services is only $104 million. Please don't tell me that you are taking all this money and spending it wisely, because I know, and we are showing here today, that you are not. So what does this mean? This means for every single person that moved into Orange County over the past 5 years, for every single person, the budget grew by over $7,000. Now, most people don't move into an area by themselves. A lot of them move in with families. So every family of 4 that moved into Orange County, the budget grew an astounding $28,296. Now, I want everyone to think about that for a moment. A new family goes and buys a house, and let's say they are paying $5,000 a year in property taxes. So government is taking in $5,000 a year in property taxes off of this family in 4, but they're spending $28,000 to deliver services. That math is not mathing. I hope none of these people ever try to run a business because it's a surefire way to go bankrupt. They are using population increase as an excuse to expand government beyond their wildest dreams, which is turning into a nightmare for people who pay property taxes in Orange County. To make matters worse for taxpayers, take a guess how many employees that they hired over the 5 years just to accommodate for 79,000 increase in population. 661 new employees at local government to take care of 79,000 people. Now, normally, and when you look at the state, we do this, as populations increase, the cost usually goes down. There are efficiencies and economies of scale. Normally, as volume goes up, cost per unit go down. Orange County employees are getting some hefty raises too. Over the past 4 years, your local government employees have seen their salaries increase 24.5%. That is way more than the private sector, and it is about 7 to 8 times more than the raises for people living in Orange County who work for state government. And all of this does not even include benefits. This is why this number frustrates me beyond belief. The private sector is having a very hard time right now making ends meet. So if you work in the private sector, you're going out, you're realizing that costs are going up. So you're having discussions with your employer asking for raises, only to get that raise, turn it over to local government in the form of property taxes so somebody else can get even more raises than you. I find something wrong with that. The other thing I don't like is I know for a fact that our first responders, our fire and police, who are putting their lives on the line every day, fighting for wage increases, some of it just to keep up with inflation, they aren't getting these raises. But the bureaucrats in local government who are sitting behind the desk are getting these raises. I have a hard time with that. So the question is, how much are taxpayers actually being fleeced by local governments when it comes to property taxes? Today, I'm here to answer that question on behalf of Orange County taxpayers. Now, the only way to figure this out is to go back in time and start off with a baseline budget. So we chose Orange County's general fund budget for fiscal year 2019 to 2020. And we increased it every year for inflation and population to accommodate for population growth and the rising costs of goods and services. Not only did we do that, we added not 1 but 2 buffers on top of that. Another 5% buffer and another 10% buffer, because government doesn't run as efficiently as a private sector. So in our numbers, we are accommodating for that factor also. So according to our calculations that we just said, that $190 million is the number over and above when you adjust for inflation, population, and a couple of buffers. Just to be clear, what I'm saying here is that once you account for population growth, inflation, hiring more police, giving police firefighters their raises, adding for government efficiency, everything. When you factor in all of that, Orange County's budget should be almost $200 million less than it is right now. Every single person in this county, whether you're a property tax owner or not, are being overtaxed to the tune of about $148 per person. If you're a taxpayer, a property taxpayer, you're paying a lot more than that. And don't even get me started with school districts. You guys are next. Trust me. This money belongs in the pockets of taxpayers, not bureaucrats who have proven to be fiscally irresponsible with your money. Now, according to our calculations, and we went through these with the Department of Commerce, Department of Revenue, we double, triple, and quadruple checked our numbers. Orange County could easily reduce the millage rate in Orange County by 0.86 mils and offer people real property tax relief. Again, I think that the number is closer to 224 million. But even with the buffers at 190 million, they could easily cut the millage rate by 0.86 mils. That is real money back in the pockets of taxpayers that have been funding this reckless, bloated budget for the last 5 years. How much will they save? Well, let's say that you have a home with a taxable value of $300,000. Maybe the market value is $350,000. After you take your exemptions, it is $300,000 taxable value. Save $257 a year. And remember, this is just the general fund budget. This is not also taking into account efficiencies that we could see in school budgets also. So when you add all of this together, you are seeing that you guys are being overtaxed to the absolute hilt. Let's say your taxable value is $400,000. You'd save $343 a year. Why are these numbers important? Because government will come out and argue that they can't cut, and the amount that they want to cut, I'm sure you see this, we'll always save $1, $2, $3 a year. It's because they're not trying to cut. I'm telling you right now, there is more than enough room to cut. If you have a $500,000 taxable value on your home, you're going to save $428 a year. This is real money back in the pockets, in the bank accounts of the taxpayers, and they can choose where to spend the money because the private sector is much more efficient. Let's put the money back in the communities that are actually funding this bloated budget in the first place. Talking about homesteaded property exemptions right now. I want everyone to understand how we got here. What we're seeing right now in the state of Florida is the same thing that we saw in the mid-2000s. We saw a rise in property values, a corresponding rise in property taxes, and we saw local governments take that money and expand government. We had a property tax revolt at that point, to the point where we had to add additional homestead exemptions, leading up into the Tea Party years when everyone started understanding that government spending was getting out of hand, not just at local government, but at the federal government also. Guys, remember those years? The same thing is happening right now. When property tax relief came in the mid-2000s, early 2010s, local governments had to cut their budgets substantially, and they did. And they survived. And you guys survived. Please, government, don't tell me you can't cut, because you can cut. You're just not trying. You can easily cut $190 million out of your budget right now, 0.86 mil in the property tax. But here's the sad state of affairs when it comes to homestead exemption. The original homestead exemption was $25,000. The median priced home when that homestead exemption went into existence was $75,000. It shielded about 33%, a third of your home, from taxation. So the reforms that we got and the current property tax homestead exemption structure that we have right now is $25,000 is exempt. The next $25,000 is not exempt, it's taxed. The third exemption on top of it is another $25,000 property tax exemption, but there's an exemption for the exemption for school boards. Once you blend it all together, it's around $39,000, $40,000 worth of property tax relief. The average home compared to what your homestead exemption is only about 9%. So we went from shielding your home for 33% from taxation to 9% right now. And this is why fixing homestead exemption and offering people real property tax relief, getting rid of property taxes on homestead exemptions, or at the very least, a much, much larger homesteaded property exemption that is indexed for inflation every year, that is the way we need to go. The people of Florida are sick and tired of wasteful spending of our tax dollars by local governments. Governments are wasting money left and right, crying poor, and then wanting more and more in the form of higher taxes. The people have had enough, and so have I. Your property taxes have been going up, not because essential services have expanded, not because of inflation and population, but because of excessive, wasteful spending by career politicians and bureaucrats who think that you are an endless ATM of money for them. I will not work anymore. It will not work anymore for them saying that they cannot cut. I'm going to be here every step of the way from now up until November 26, showing them that they can. Sometimes they need to be reminded that it's not their money, it is our money. So with that, we do have some guest speakers for today. At this time, I want to call up Jeff Kotkamp, Florida Tax Watch, if you can come up. As you know, previously Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Florida, a good friend. Microphone is yours, sir.
Thank you so much. It is great to be here. True. I'm really proud of our CFO on the leadership he's showing on bringing accountability and transparency to local government budgets. You know, businesses, as he said, you see these debates over funding. It is amazing how people have the mindset that you can keep going back to the people and taking more and more and more of their money, and that's just not the case. And so this effort is really important for the long-term financial viability of both our state and our local communities. We've done budget forecast as far back as a year ago at Tax Watch, saying, look, we're getting ready to have no longer budget surpluses but deficits. So the timing is perfect for the CFO's efforts. This property tax, and you've been hit with a lot of numbers, so I'm not going to hit you with a lot of numbers, but we went actually back for 10 years, just looking at the counties here in Central Florida. And again, and I think it's fair that you factor in population and inflation and compare that to the growth in their property tax revenues, and it's pretty astounding, particularly Osceola, Orange County, almost 50 times more, 50% more when you compare the two. It's just the growth is not something that you see in local, at your own home, in your own budget. You don't see these kind of growths and revenues coming from other people. I think it's really important, as the CFO said, to always remember this is not government's money. It's your money. I also want it to be clear that nobody is anti-government. Obviously, we have to fund the core services, the core functions of government, starting with, as the CFO mentioned, public safety, critically important. But as the great philosophers from the Rolling Stones said, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you get what you need. And that's kind of the philosophy that we need from government. It's nice to spend money on all these things, but those aren't the core functions of government. And I think if they take heed from the CFO and actually get back to the basics and look and say, what is the core function of government here? Those are the things we should be funding. They will find the savings. It can be found. It's not easy work. These are tough decisions, but they are decisions that must be made. The current trend is not sustainable for the long-term viability of our cities, our counties, and our states. And for that reason, we fully embrace and applaud the efforts of our CFO.
And at this time, I want to call on Nathan Ducat, Strategic Growth Officer, Massive Makes. You have the microphone. Let's speak.
Thank you, and thanks
Great
first.
Haircut, by the way.
Same barber, right? Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, we just want to take the opportunity to just say thanks for having me speaking here today. My name is Nathan Ducote. I'm a partner at a company called Massive Make right here in Orlando. Like so many others, I chose Florida, and specifically Central Florida, as the place I wanted to live and build my business. At first, it was the opportunity to build the theme parks that brought me here. But very quickly, I fell in love with the region. I met a wonderful woman, started a family, was able to purchase a home, and launched my business. And today, Central Florida is not just where I work, but it's truly home. You know, for me, though, I was very fortunate. The timing just happened to be right. This was 2015, and so home prices, as you know, were very different than they are today. So I was able to lock in a very nice home at a very good price, and at a very low interest rate. And so I've considered myself extremely fortunate of having the opportunity to do that. There's nothing more that I would want as a business owner than to have the ability to offer the same thing to every person that I go out and recruit and try to retain. There's so many people that really, I feel their pain when they're trying to purchase a home right now and trying to make decisions about, how do I do this? How am I, and they ask me, am I going to have an opportunity to have a family and a home? How do I do it? Did I just miss the boat? And it's a very difficult question. We do the best that we can to try to provide as much as we can for all of our employees, but you know, margins are tight in the construction industry. So we've leaned into what we can do on an efficiency side. That was the whole premise behind Massive Make, is that we're moving into additive manufacturing, robotic technologies, things that allow us to be more efficient. So I love the theme of efficiency. We specialize in large format additive manufacturing, using robots to create themed environments, architectural elements, even components for aerospace and municipalities. Basically, if we can imagine it, we can print it, we can deliver it with greater efficiency than traditional fabrication. You know, Central Florida has the universities also to match its strength in industry. You look around, there's so many universities here, and that's a great thing. And there's so many industries as well, between the three theme parks, aerospace, defense, healthcare, simulation. You can see why this area is positioned to lead. But it really needs that businesses, educators, and government had to work together to attract and retain top talent, to stay laser focused on efficiency and manage costs like property taxes and insurances so our workforce can afford to live here. And if we do that, if we lean into that same spirit of imagination, there's no limit what we can build together. Central Florida is a beacon for the brightest engineers, designers, and artists from around the world. And when you put that kind of talent together, sometimes you get the Sistine Chapel. From innovation of the Space Coast to Orlando as a global epicenter of imagination, we're proud to call this home, and we're encouraged by the government's efficiency at every level, continuing to strive to make Florida the envy of the world. This isn't just the future of manufacturing, it's the future of our community, our families, and our state. I'm proud to be here in Central Florida building that future with all of you, but we can't do it without a workforce that can afford to live here. As a business owner, it's critically important for me to offer every member of my team, everyone I recruit, to have a home and afford the taxes associated and to have a family. So thank you all for sharing that vision, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here and to share that vision with you today.
Thank you. So very good points. One of the things that we all concern ourselves as small business people is making sure that our employees are able to live comfortably. Now, a lot of times that means us giving them bigger salaries, bigger raises. But a lot of times also that means us cutting costs. So if you're looking at housing costs, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, if we can cut property taxes by rooting out the waste, fraud, and abuse out of these bloated budgets, we do a service for our employees and make their lives easier. And you know also who else benefits from lower property taxes? Our first responders. Because the last time I checked, they live in homes also, and they pay property taxes. One last thing before I take some questions is I started getting involved in politics by calling out excessive wasteful spending at the local government in Hernando County. I coined the phrase government gone wild. My Twitter handle, you can follow me on Twitter personally, at @GovGoneWild. Shameless plug. The whole idea that government is wasting money is not new. It just, the form and how they waste money just changes from year to year. But I got involved with this a long time ago, and there's one thing that I learned when you start calling out government waste is they will make every excuse in the book to try to hold on to their wasteful, bloated budgets. They will come out and say things like, if we do this, we're going to have to cut our fire and police, and it's going to make you, the response times are going to be longer. That's BS. I think we've already proven here today that there is more than enough waste, fraud, and abuse, almost $200 million worth of excessive wasteful spending that they can take care of our first responders. And let me just talk about that. The first rule of government is to protect its people. And the way you do that locally is by funding fire and police. So I don't want to hear anything out of a local government saying that they don't have the money to do that, because that's the first thing that they should be doing, okay? But the other thing I've noticed is that they will go out and they will try to impugn the messenger and poke holes in the data. When I did Government Gone Wild way back when, I had a whole bunch of county commissioners, both Democrat and Republican, run to the local paper and say that my information was incorrect, that we're calculating it wrong. Basically, Ingoglia is just lying. I have the newspaper clippings to prove that. And we kept on saying, no, we're not. This is 100% right. We will show you how we got the numbers, but it didn't stop them from trying to impugn the information. Until one day, true story, we're at a Board of County Commission meeting, and the Republican county commissioner said to the HR director, I don't remember her name, said, can you come up here and explain to everyone what our budget is about and finally tell everyone the truth, what's going on? Budget director got up there and said, nope, he's telling the truth. The place burst out in laughter. Because for 4 months, they were telling everyone that the information was inaccurate. Everything that we went over today was double, triple, and quadruple checked and verified by the Department of Revenue. There are going to be stories out there that says that our information is not accurate. All they're trying to do is keep the gravy train of your dollars flowing into their coffers so they can continue expanding government. Don't buy it. With that, I'll take any questions you guys have. Well, the first thing I would say is that we did give them specifics today that we have calculated once you go back and index for inflation and population with not one but two buffers, that they have been overtaxing and overspending by the tune of $200 million. So they can say that we don't know what we're talking about. And the Doge efforts, when we come out, will show some specific instances of what they're actually spending on, but it doesn't make any sense. Anyone who just sits back and thinks that in 5 years a budget goes from $1.1 billion to $1.6 billion, okay, for only 79,000 people, it's sort of common sense that they're wasting a crap ton of this money. So they can go and say whatever they want. What they should be doing is listening not to the bureaucrats and the bean counters in their own office of budget trying to keep their own bloated budgets, but go and listen to people walking on Main Street, because those are the people that are hurting. Hold on 1 second. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, can you give us any specifics?
All I can tell you this, on the specific spending, when the information comes out, I've seen some of it, it is eye-popping. Some of it is jarring, some of the money that they're actually spending and what they're spending it on here in the county. But here's another thing. I'm not an OMB director here in Orange County, right? They know where the wasteful spending is. They know how to cut. We just gave them the number. They can cut that easily.
That 190 million number, is that annually? There's 190 million annually, or is that?
No, that's annually. They could very easily cut 190 million out of the budget right now today, 0.6 mils, and deliver substantial property tax relief. That is undeniable from our calculations.
Just Northwest and Seminole County, they are actively going through a property tax process like everyone else is, and they're moving for increased property taxes. Curious, has your Doge office inquired with them?
With Seminole, no, but I will tell you that every single county, every city in this state is going through the same thing. I have not seen many fiscally constrained spending accounts when you start going back and indexing for inflation population. It's just not there. They're taking the windfall, because that's actually what it is. It is a windfall of money and adding programs and expanding programs. There's no two ways about it. The numbers don't make sense. The math doesn't math. How can you have a budget of $1.1 billion and go to 1.6 with only increasing 79,000 in the state of Florida? Remember, a person who has a home, family of 4, that is paying $5,000 in property taxes is using $28,000 worth of services? There's no way. Well, there is a way. The way is that they're overspending, and they shouldn't be spending that in the first place. Any other questions? Sir.
Comes out, does your office have any tools or you can tell counties like Orange County?
Regardless of what the report says, the report is going to show specific instances, not all instances, because we're not going in and doing forensic audits, but it's going to show some instances of what the county is wasting money on. The number, everyone, let's not get bogged down in exact programs, because quite frankly, that's their job, is to get and right-size the budget. It's not our job. We are going to point them in the direction, but they're the ones that are going to need to be cut. And let me say this, because let's say there was never, for argument's sake, let's say there was never a Doge report with specific instances. The $190 million worth of excessive wasteful spending that we see here in Orange County is enough to stop me, if I was a legislator, for putting in any appropriation for Orange County, because they've proven that they have not spent their current tax dollars wisely. You're not going to go and spend our state tax dollars unwisely. Here's another thing. If they go and try to raise taxes, they need to be called out on it. And there certainly shouldn't be given any more tax dollars, because we've seen local governments go with this type of excessive spending, cry poor, say they have no money, and then make the case in the argument that they have to add an extra sales tax or raise millage rate, and they want you guys to vote for it. You know why they want you to vote for it? Is because they don't want to do the cutting themselves. They would just much rather go to the voters and ask for extra money. Questions?
What if they don't do anything? What if they just say, oh, thanks for coming?
Two things. Number one, I think this is such a big issue that a lot of them will be voted out of office. And quite frankly, you have a mayor now who's deciding that he wants to run for governor. This type of spending should be disqualifying. But the big thing is that in 2026, the people of the state of Florida will be able to vote for their own tax relief and make them cuts. The only update I have on a subpoena is that the true to form, Orange County was wasting money and not doing anything efficiently like we've seen before. So the story there is that normally a general counsel that receives subpoenas on behalf of government employees will take the subpoenas on behalf of the government employees and then call in the government employees and say, hey, you've been subpoenaed, right? No, not Orange County. What they did was they made us waste taxpayer dollars and try to track them all over the state for 2 weeks to try to individually hand it to them. We just got the last one served last week, and they are set to come in and talk to our investigators here in the next couple of weeks.
One of the things that the county brought up a couple of weeks ago when it first brought this up was the impact of tourism on Orange County. Maybe it's not permanent residents, but the millions of people who visit.
Last time I checked, we had sales tax.
I was going to ask you, through those reviews, is it going to include things like this Orlando and TDP spending?
It may. I don't know exactly what the teams are looking at in form of that. Look, the county can say whatever they want. Until they can justify $190 million of excessive spending, I don't want to hear anything from the county. Guys, last question? Any last questions? All right, guys, thank you for coming. I appreciate that. Just know this. I want everyone to know this, is that if your locals will not look out for your property tax dollars, I will. I promise you that. Thank you, guys.